Looks like a really good attendance, representation from each of the councils, so I really appreciate that. And we have two speakers today, and I don't know if you received the updated agenda I sent last night, but I did have to switch that. Jessica will be joining closer to 2:30, so you know, a minor flip on the agenda there. But before kind of getting into our speakers, I just wanted to, you know, thank you all again for taking time and just kind of set the tone and the theme for today's call. Later on, I know we will hear from some council updates, but just looking at it being that it's Women's History Month, just looking at the theme of my agenda, you know, looking at highlighting, you know, women in leadership positions. And first just wanted to recognize, I wasn't sure, Connie, if you were going to be here, so your name was already included, but our ACT president, Connie McGee, our two speakers who I will introduce later on in the agenda. But I just wanted to, you know, recognize the women in leadership roles in our councils. So with the employers, there's several that are leading different subcommittees. So there's Deborah, Jessica, Karen, and Pooja. Apologize if I mispronounced that. With our TMA council, there's Julia and Olivia as the chair and the vice chair. Our telework council, Allie and Robin. Our university council, Megan's in a leadership position. And Van Pooling, all three leadership positions, Michelle, Erica, and Jessica. So just wanted to recognize, again, a few days left in March, but for Women's History Month, and looking especially, you know, with diversifying and with leadership roles, you know, congratulating and appreciate the work that you do. And that's not meant to exclude the men. I also want to appreciate and thank the men as well for their volunteer roles. And I think as men can continue to support, and women, as we can continue to support women in leadership roles, it's only going to strengthen not only our industry, but the world, if you will, as a whole. So, and as I was preparing, kind of thinking about the theme, looking at with leadership, thinking about some quotes, but with Eleanor Roosevelt, she said, a good leader inspires people to have confidence in the leader. A great leader inspires people to have confidence in themselves. And so in thinking about the roles that each of you have as leadership roles in the council, you know, the idea of, I think you should all think of yourselves as a good leader and even beyond that, a great leader, and thinking about, not that you want to end your term and think about when it's over, but what are you doing now to then be setting the stage of when you're ready to move on from this position, who else will be stepping into the role? So, you know, thinking about as ACT National wants to put together a leadership workshop later this year at the international conference. We could talk about that later to see maybe who's able to travel, who's going to be there. But that's the intent. It's an in-person leadership workshop. And so thought it would be great to start to think about and incorporate those themes into our calls, an opportunity to still talk to one another. But I thought that, you know, looking at, you know, why I got involved in ACT and, you know, all the benefits that I've seen, you know, not only personally making friends, but professionally, and how it elevates your career, and, you know, utilizing people for a network of again, as a friendship, but really looking and calling upon if I need advice on a program that I'm able to bring back to our organization. So, you know, just again, looking at the idea of leadership and appreciate the efforts of leading. And I think sometimes being a chair or a vice chair, and that's not to diminish the secretary role, but in those three leadership roles, I think sometimes we feel we have to do it alone. So our speaker later on in the agenda, Jessica, is going to be talking about how do we engage those members? How do we, you know, beyond thinking that we have to do it all. And you see from the Employer Council, you guys have a lot of subcommittees, which is great to be able to, and I know other councils have started to develop those as well. So we can't do it alone. Working together to advance TDM and the initiatives in your work program is definitely where, you know, collaborating and getting those members engaged. So just kind of setting the tone on that. I want to turn it over to our first speaker. That's going to be Veronica Jarvis. And Veronica is ACT's Public Policy Vice Chair. I know we had Rob on last meeting, but there's been movement on the TDM legislation that I wanted to have Veronica on. And just a little bit of background on Veronica. She has worked for Governor Gregoire. There we go. Thank you. Doing outreach and community relations. Worked with Governor Inslee.
Jay Inslee.
Okay, I'm getting closer.
No
doing transportation budgeting, and you're currently serving, correct, on the state's TDM board. So I think the knowledge that you have on that, bringing it to the Public Policy Council is great. And then you recently started working for the Regional Planning Council, running the local commute program and doing TDM planning. And I was asking Veronica, you know, how did you get involved in ACT and wanting to be more involved in this leadership role? So, and that was it with some of the TDM planning you were doing with the commute program. So thank you for being with us here, and we're looking forward to hearing your update and how the councils can help with some of the initiatives with public policy. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Maureen, and nice to meet everyone and see some familiar faces. So as she mentioned, I am pretty new to my role. I started last July, but I've been on the TDM board for the state for 5 years. It's been quite a while. So I've been in and around TDM issues, but maybe at a higher level. So it's been fun to really get more of an on the ground feel for TDM. So that's been awesome for me. I'm excited to talk to you a little bit more about the More Through TDM Act and some of the things we have planned for this spring. Just not assuming that everyone thinks it's as fun as I do to read bills. I'm going to just give a quick high level. Here's what the More Through TDM Act does. It's adding TDM in the policy statement for metropolitan planning and defining TDM and those strategies in legislation, and then adding TDM to state transportation plans. And then the big one is, you know, authorizing $250 million a year for TDM projects as a grant program. And that's something I just think is so exciting because it really would open up a lot of opportunities across the nation and give us chances to do bigger projects than a lot of us, I think, could do now. Just limited funding streams and really specific funding. And this would be very more broad TDM. And I think that's an exciting opportunity. Also $3 million for the establishment of a university center dedicated to TDM, which I also think would be a great opportunity to do some research in the field. And maybe also that would be a chance to put it all in one place. And that sort of leads into why we want to do something related to TDM week. But before I go there, I do want to talk a little bit more about just the legislation and where it's at right now. We're seeking co-sponsors for the legislation right now. Representative Chuy Garcia put out a Dear Colleague letter last week. And I did a little outreach to my congressional delegation. And in my role in working for a regional transportation policy organization, I'm not technically allowed to lobby or advocate, but like I say, I'm always allowed to educate and provide awareness about things going on. So that's what I've been doing and making my congressional delegation aware of this opportunity, incredible opportunity that they have. So, so that's what I've done so far. And we're hoping to get ACT members also involved in reaching out to their Congress people to get co-sponsors, but just to also get support of the legislation. And we'll be doing a session on April, or hopefully a couple of sessions on April 12th to give some more information about the More Through TDM Act, and then also how to be an advocate, or as I'm saying, an educator, depending on your role. And I'd love to get some feedback from all of you at the end of this on challenges you've had before in that realm, and how I can, help work through those, or find resources to help work through those. So that's something I'd like to touch on is, if you've ever done direct outreach to your congressperson, what's been the roadblocks, and is there, or what have been the great successes that you've had? So I would love to get some feedback from this group of people, because I imagine some of you at least have reached out before. So like I said, we're seeking co-sponsors now. It should be officially introduced very soon. You never know the exact date. So that brings me to, after we do some education on April 12th on the best way to reach out to your congressional delegation, we're hoping in May to do a TDM week, which would help to highlight a lot of the projects that a lot of us are doing in TDM. I think one of the things we've struggled with, and we don't have all in one place, is, hey, this is a good example of a project that's happening in Tennessee. This is a good example of a TDM project that's happening in California. We don't have, like, a registry or a library or somewhere where we're putting all that. Or maybe we do, and I'm new and I don't know enough, but I think we're trying to get more current examples of the great things going on in TDM, because I think all of you know about those in your community or your region. And we want to provide those examples to our congressional delegations as, here's what could happen with this funding. Look at all this great money we're saving not building roads by making the most efficient use of our systems. And getting away from car-centric to, people-centric building. So we want to have more examples of those. So the idea is to, in May, start, we'll have people reaching out to their legislators throughout this time, but hopefully the week of May 10th through 14th, do a focus on TDM week, and do a hashtag, and talk about your projects in social media, whatever kind of social media your organization participates in, and have those opportunities where you share your projects and put a link to them so we can highlight more of those, and then trying to use the hashtag TDM week so we can get those all organized in one place. So that's our goal, is to find a way to organize so we can get all these great projects and successes that you've had, and have them for the future, so we can share about those to legislators and decision makers as, this is a great way to use money. Look at what I did here. Look at the new ideas they're trying here. So I think it's a really great opportunity, and this is something new to us, and I think we want to at least give it a try and see if this concept will work. I think we're trying to be a little creative, knowing that normally we would be doing a policy week or policy days with Congress and going to visit them, day on the Hill, but that's much more challenging this year. So I think Rob was trying to think outside the box a little on other options to still highlight all the incredible work that's happening, and coordinate and gather it in one place. So it's also sort of an opportunity for those of you that have similar limitations to me, that can't say, hey, look at this great program, let's get more money for it, and be very direct in advocacy. It's an opportunity to just share in more of a marketing fashion. Look at what we're doing. This project is great. Hashtag TDM week. And then you're not necessarily making a statement one way or the other, hey, support the More Through TDM Act. But we're able to gather those examples and use them as, look at what it could do. So really providing some flexibility for those of us that have different limitations in our employers. So with that, I would be really interested in if any of you would like to share about doing outreach to your congressional delegation, but also in any challenges you've had in advocacy work and things like that with TDM, where we might be able to do better, or anything like that, or any questions for me. I'm happy to take questions on any of that.
Don't
Has
be
anybody done
shy.
outreach before? Anybody done outreach to their, raise your hand if you've talked to your congressperson. Okay, Jesse's got it. All right, Connie, Johan, okay. Yeah. So what have successes been? Have there been great successes? Anybody? The meetings are always so quick, and it's hard to get out everything you want to say in those meetings, but I just want to make sure. Okay.
I've just been lucky to have gone and been in person
Yeah.
some of the legislative summits that we've done, and have found it to be probably some of the best experiences I've ever had as it relates to ACT. Definitely, I've had the most growth in that area
Okay.
personally. They are very fast, but I think I love the idea of what you're doing with the 2 sessions in April to get people comfortable with what is it that you say and how do they go. I mean, it's a little different because we're doing them virtual as opposed to in person. Yeah. In some ways more intimidating, in some ways not as intimidating.
Right.
But I have to say that, obviously over the last 11 years or so since I started doing this, doing these in person, that it gets easier the more you talk to them, and the more opportunities you have to get in front of them and really just talk about your program. And that's, I think what's most important is what we're talking about is what we do every day. And once I learned that, I felt a lot more comfortable because I know my business and I know what I do. Talking about that and how it relates to what support we need from them in order to, for us to continue to do what we do and to support their constituents.
Yeah, it's a great comment, Connie. I'm glad to hear you've felt, it's a good opportunity and challenge to grow your credentials and career. It's great.
Yeah.
One of the things that we really hope, and Veronica brought it up, there's the difference between advocacy and education. And, on the education standpoint, you all and members across the country run fabulous programs that are really delivering value and benefits to commuters in those members of Congress's district. And transportation is one of those areas where Congress receives a lot of complaints. People always have thoughts about their roads, their bridges, and what's public transit and what's working and what's not. And we actually have a story that members of Congress actually want to hear, which is, how are we helping improve the lives of your constituents? And this is how we do it. And I would say 60%, if not more, of the meetings that typically take place are you just simply sharing what you do and the role it plays in the community that they oversee. And usually ends with that. And by the way, here's some stuff that's going on, out there that we think you would be interested in potentially supporting or just learning about and knowing what's there. And that's ultimately what we're really hoping for over the next 6 weeks, is to really see this, education push.
Yes.
So I think it could potentially be intimidating for, I'm just maybe not thinking of you all on the call, but maybe for your council members, where do I even begin? What if I don't have a relationship with my elected official? Here at GVF, we're very fortunate that we've had our Congress, we have have had at least, I think, 3 of the Congresswomen out to speak at our, when we were in person. So we have a really good relationship with them and their staff. So, you know, I'm wondering, you know, how can not maybe Veronica be on every call, but what would, and the idea that TDM during COVID, you know, the idea of sidewalk connections, biking, so many people getting out, walking, you know, the Congress, you know, the elected officials, they may not know the term TDM, but that's what it is, right? But what can, you know, Veronica or the Public Policy Council, what could they do for, you know, each of your councils? Is it coming on to a call between now and April? I know that's not that much time, you know, right, actually, but with April 12th around the corner. But I'm just wondering, you know, how are you all thinking of potentially getting information out about this? You know, ACT will send out a blast email, but then how do you potentially break it down for your council members to not feel overwhelmed or intimidated and be like, I don't even know who my congressperson is. Like, I'm not going to do that letter, you know, but that, oh, participate. So there is those two different levels of like, I can actively send that letter, or I'm going to participate in the TDM social media outreach efforts. Are there thoughts or, like, I don't want to say concerns, but, you know, things that you may be thinking about as council leaders of how to effectively communicate and how to effectively engage your members to get on board with these initiatives? I know ACT is working to develop, obviously, content that will help. I'm not saying you all are, okay, you got Veronica's update, good luck getting the info out. But any kind of initial thoughts on that?
I mean, it makes me think that we would probably just forward it out and kind of piggyback on and go, hey, this is a great idea. And if there's other members of the council who have already done it, I know I've participated for a few years as well. And it was extremely beneficial and professional development, but also just feeling on the advocacy front, just like you guys said, talking about what you do every single day, right? I mean, in the South, got a lot of Republicans, so it's nice to kind of be like, hey, opportunity, right? But I mean, I think we can piggyback on it. And then maybe try to, Jesse and Erica, maybe we can try to see if some have already done it, wouldn't mind saying like, hey, I've done this, if you have questions, you know, like,
Yeah.
to help point in the right direction. Or maybe if some members of the PPC can be like liaisons, and maybe you guys aren't hopping on a call, but hey, if you need help or have questions, like you can reach out to Phil Winters or a Dion or someone like that who would have that advocacy level a little bit more in tune than some of us, just off the top of my head.
Yeah,
from the.
Oh, go ahead, David.
From the support side, you know, ACT is there to provide support and assistance and scheduling meetings. If you do or do not, you know, folks do or do not even know who their member of Congress is, you know, our government affairs team at Smith Dawson can help them find the right point of contact within the correct offices for them to meet. And if anyone or a group, you know, I even encourage folks, you know, if you've got other organizations in your region, if 2 or 3 of you came together and had a phone call with the member of, you know, and their staff, and you're never meeting, you know, highly unlikely you're ever meeting with the elected, you know, representative. It's usually a staff member, a legislative assistant, you know, and you have 2 other colleagues there with you. It's always much easier to do that, as well as it expands the understanding of the role that transportation plays in their district. But if you ever wanted to have, you know, myself or someone from the policy committee or SDA join the call, we can always work with that as well and figure out who can join.
I was
Yeah,
just
that's-
gonna,
Oh,
sorry, I was
go
just gonna
ahead.
ask, yeah, who would you recommend that we do that? Because I know our TMA has a really, the CID that we're a part of has a very strong relationship with Representative McBath. So I getting that meeting probably wouldn't be hard for them. They chat with her pretty regularly, especially right now. But I wouldn't feel like, yeah, I'll just go in and talk about the MORE Act, like,
Yeah.
much as I'd
Yeah.
love to say I could.
That's one of the suggestions that when Maureen brought it up, I was going to say when she said, it might seem intimidating to just go contact someone and talk about something you don't know a ton about. It's a great idea to bring partners, like anybody that, in the same realm. A lot of times when we make presentations about some of the TDM work in our community, we bring the local mayors that it affects their bottom line of their budget. Yes, this is better for their city streets, so they don't have to build as many or repave as many new roads. So exactly like you said, like using your TMA as the connection and knowing that you actually wouldn't really have to do much to set up the meeting. You could say, hey, I'm interested. Could we partner together and do a meeting? And knowing that, yeah, it probably will be, most meetings are 15 minutes. They're super short. But that almost helps you because then you don't need to try and cover too much. You can really just say, here's who we are. There's this act that would provide funding for our projects. There you have it. And do you have any questions? And it's so quick and it's a great opportunity to at least meet them and establish a relationship. So I think that's a really great suggestion, is just to use your TMA, use your RTPO, MPO, whatever you have in your region. And those partnerships are great too, because then it's a good opportunity to work together more in the future.
That's great. Thank you, Veronica. And
Yeah.
I think that it's definitely, David and his team do such a great job with their emails, and there's so much great content. But I know we're guilty of potentially not reading every single line or every single email. And so if maybe we're all guilty of that, then your members are probably guilty of, I'm going to flag that, I'm going to get back to it. So what we're really going to count on is, I think that's a great start. Michelle, you mentioned you're going to forward off the information. It makes sense, but then really, relying on your leadership for you all to follow up. And that's not to, force someone to write a letter of support because maybe they can't, but the idea of really looking at that outreach when we get to that May week and the education and the outreach. So, having Veronica come on and talk about where the bill is right now and where ACT is heading towards these initiatives is really to provide the education, and then also knowing that we're going to need your help on this and getting the word out and to your members. So, thank you so much, Veronica. And if you're able to stick around, if there's any other questions, I know you were on the email with the other council leadership. So Veronica's available for any, one-off sidebar questions as well. So,
yes.
I
really am. Feel free to contact me and reach out to me. And like I said, meetings are short. If you ever say, hey, I'd like to have some support on this, I would be happy. I'm sure I can't do it for everyone, but in my mind, there's going to be a ton of outreach happening, and yes, we should all do it. But I really am happy to answer quick questions, things like that. Like, no problem at all. Feel free to reach out. And I have about 20 more minutes to stay on, so I'm happy to stay on. Yes.
Thank you for that. I think that provides some comfort in knowing that they don't have to do it alone. And collaboration is what we're about. One thing we're about here at ACT. So, all right, well, I'd like to turn it over to our other guest speaker, Jessica Alba. Thank you so much for joining us, Jessica. And I did not want to read Jessica's full bio because Jessica and I are going to have a bit of a Q&A elaborating, but then also time for questions for you all if you have any specific, but going along with the theme, the idea of leadership, and just in some of our earlier conversations that I had with some of you all in your maybe new or roles that you've had for now, maybe this is your second term, third, the idea and reflecting on my own time as TMA Council Chair, and the struggle sometimes of motivating others to get engaged, volunteer, and then recognizing you don't have to do it all. And so I've admired Jessica's work from afar, literally on the East Coast. But looking at your involvement and passion towards ACT and TDM, I just thought it would be a wonderful opportunity to have you speak to the group here today. And I know we had a few questions, but feel free to, we could go off script. But I just thought if you can, kick it off and just share a little bit about, how did you get involved in ACT and continue to stay involved as you've been doing. So.
Yeah, it's great to be here. And hi, everyone. It's so good to see so many of you that I know well. And the same back to you, Maureen. The things that you do for the organization, it's fantastic. So how I got involved. So I have about 20 years in the TDM space. And on and off during that 20 years, I've been at ACT conferences and really enjoyed being in a space where I feel like I'm at home. And I think that keeps bringing me back, that I feel like I can speak my language and know that most people with very different backgrounds, whether it's communications, marketing, or engineering, when it comes to the actual aspects of TDM, that there's so much recognition, the similarity between programs and so much innovation going on. And that keeps bringing me back. When I worked at Nelson Nygaard as a consultant, I also was the director of staff development and involved in firm management. I didn't have much time to invest in an organization. So I had ACT as kind of one of my favorites and conference that I really wanted to attend, but didn't have much time to invest. And then I started at Stanford University at the end of 2017. So it's been a little bit more than 3 years now. Time flies, right? And had the opportunity to finally give back to this organization that I was really starting to fall in love with. And the opportunity arose to join the newly formed or just about to be formed certification board of trustees, the CBOT, that had the mission to actually create the TDMCP, the certification program. And at the time, this was early, so that was a year after joining Stanford. At that time, I got on the board of trustees and became the vice chair. Another woman, Malika from Atlanta ARC, was the chair for a while, but she had to step down because she got a new position but she just did not have time to step or keep the chair role. So I stepped into the chair role, and that was actually the first time I was chairing something outside of my work. And it was a big transition, and I had to really rely on the subcommittees to do their work and have a great partnership with David, among others, and my executive committee to guide me through the first several months, because it was all new to me. How do I chair a meeting? And most on this call, right? We've done this now for years or a couple of years or a number of months, and we're getting used to it. You're getting used to the flow. Time management is so important. If you are not good at managing your time, find someone who can really help you guide the time so that you're getting to everything that you need to do. But back to Maureen's question, I think bottom line is that ACT is home. I want to give back, and I know that many of you feel the same way. I am gaining so much from seeing the growth in people around me, in seeing other people grow in their roles. So the mentor-mentee relationship, and being a mentor in some relationships, being a mentee in others, that's such a fantastic feeling to have peers in the industry that you can either go to for guidance or to provide guidance to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jessica, I think you said that ACT, you're my people. The people that are at ACT, you're my people. So I think
Yeah.
that is a familiar feeling for many of us, depending on what your position is. We're all trying to do the same thing. And you can hear the passion in your voice for sure. And I did touch on very briefly, but the idea of mentoring or peer-to-peer mentoring. And so the idea is no one is rushing anyone out of these council leadership positions, but how are you setting it up for success that if you decide to move into another leadership role in the association, how is that leaving the council behind in success? So, and so do you want to touch a little bit about, I do see some of you, and congratulations again, Jessica included, but have the TDM CP next to your name. So, you know, and thinking of how can the councils help to get that information out about the importance or the level that it could have to elevate their career as well.
Yeah. I think some councils may already be pushing out the information, but it's coming generally from the ACT organization as a whole or through chapters. So I think you're asking a good question, Maureen. If this is something you want to bring up in your council meetings, we do have a prepared presentation. One of the CBOT members could participate in your council meeting. Or we could find another way that works for you in regards to pushing down the message. But really, what we're trying to do is just like with the More Through TDM Act that you guys just heard so much about, it's about really solidifying what TDM is about. TDM, if you don't know what TDM is, right, then you're not even going to reflect when someone says the 3 letters, right? So solidifying what it is and what we can do with it and the opportunities that arise with it. And having a certification program supports that effort because it solidifies what we do, what you are good at, what skills you have, the breadth of areas that we have to keep an eye on and know stuff about. So that's what's so intriguing about it, that it really defines everything that we do. So hopefully we'll have a lot more TDMCPs in the next few years. And of course, then you have the recertification process, right? Where you need to recertify every 2 years. And that gives you an opportunity to continue giving back. You are gaining credits, participating in councils and chapters and events by contributing writing materials, by contributing to the actual certification exam. So there are a ton of opportunities to then stay involved and continue your professional growth as well as your leadership growth.
Great, thank you. So I think one last question, because I know we have several council updates, pardon me. So, you know, we all find our own ways to motivate, whether it be our team that we are managing, you know, within the colleague environment, and thinking of this council leadership, our council members. So, you know, just kind of personally, you know, any tips of, you know, motivating others to actively get involved. You know, the idea of collaborating. I know that was an area of interest that, you know, councils wanting to collaborate more.
Yeah.
So if you're able to touch on that briefly.
Yeah. So what Veronica said towards the end of her speaking, she said, just reach out, right? I can participate. I will be there with you if you need to make a difficult call and don't know really how to do it, and I can guide you and we can do it together. I think collaboration is so important, and it's been much tougher in the past year because we can't get together in person. On the other hand, I would say that my professional network has grown tremendously over the past year because Zoom and Meet, different kinds of video meetings are taking place so much more regularly. And so I do get to see more faces, even if it's not in person. I can't hug this person, but I can definitely have a conversation with them. If you, so just earlier this morning, I was actually thinking, I need to reach out to Veronica because I don't know enough about Veronica and I want to get to know her better. So I'm going to do that after this call and let her know if you're still on. I don't know if you're, oh, you are on. That's too funny. Because, and I've been so impressed with everything that she's said in the past few meetings that I've been with her on. So even if it feels awkward in the beginning, making these connections are so important for just to get a smile on your face, especially during a pandemic when there's so much difficulty around us and during all of the social distress that we're in right now and everything that's going on. Putting smiles on your face, your own faces, is really, really important. And picking up the phone or setting up a call, even if it's 3 or 4 weeks out, you have a full calendar, get that 15-minute call on your calendar with a few people that you really have tried to reach out to. When it comes to people that you have in your council, so for instance, with me and my CBOT, it's all about David and I were, texting, we're emailing, but also getting on the phone and also doing a video call here and there. Try to reach out. Try to stay connected with the people in your direct reports, right? So that they feel motivated and stay motivated. Have them engage with their direct reports so that they can all stay engaged and committed and move forward on the tasks that you guys need to move forward on. If there's conflict, make sure that you give everyone an opportunity to talk about it and acknowledge if something goes in the wrong direction so that people know that you're humble, you're listening, and you're trying to find the best compromise. It may not be the best solution, but if you can get to some kind of a good compromise, then that's worth everything. And David and I had a big moment here a few weeks ago when the CBOT was very determined for us to go in a certain direction. And it was not the direction that David and I wanted to go in, but it ended up being the right decision. And it ended up removing potential conflict further down the line. So do listen and pick up the phone and involve those that may not always be on the screen or not contribute personally. So yeah, everything we can do to just increase collaboration.
Mm-hmm. That's great, Jessica. I know that, there's so much more to be said, but I really think, high level, you really hit on a lot. Just want to thank you again for your leadership and the tremendous work and the idea of having the certification, TDM certification. It's really an industry, life-changing really for this industry. And kind of thinking of this theme for today with leadership, the idea of, as you all are really kind of closing in on your first quarter of this year in these roles, thought it would be, motivating to hear, kind of as you maybe, January, we're trying to get your footing and, now with the quarterly reports due in April, kind of a pulse of where you are with engagement of your members, your council members. So really, providing those tips. I know some of them, Jessica, I'm like, oh, I knew that. And then it's like, oh, but maybe I haven't been doing it. I haven't been reaching out as much as I could have been or should be. So thank you. Thank you for those points and inspiring words and your reflection on your position and involvement in ACT. So would like to move into council updates. Jessica and Veronica, you're welcome to stay, but I understand, your schedules for sure, bouncing to meeting. So if you need to head out, that's okay. Thank you. So just wanted to probably do it in alphabetical order, was thought would be a good way, and looking at it as, thinking about the work plans, again, looking at it being closing in on the quarter, thought if you wanted to highlight one or two, whether it be accomplishments or what you're working on. If you'd like to, we can, under the national update, Elizabeth, maybe we can get a head count of who's coming to the conference. So you guys could keep that in mind. You don't necessarily have to say that under your updates, perhaps. But Tom, would you like to give the update for the Employer Council?
Sure, happy to. On March 15th, we held our council meeting and we had 23 folks in attendance. We went over the 2020 plan that we went through there. One of the things that really came out of this was the strengthening of the relationship between the Employer Council and the TMA Council. I think we had some really good discussion there, and I think we've had some really good discussion outside of actually our work plan, and actually had some discussions with folks actually on this call, as a matter of fact. So that was great. We did set up a couple of sessions for us to go through later on. We are talking about a webcast in Q2. We also had been discussing a potential in-person meetup at the international conference that includes both the TMA and the Employer Council as a joint session. And with that, I think I'll stop and open it up for questions.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for highlighting that collaboration too. Any questions for Tom? All right. Allie, just deferring if I see the chair, but that doesn't mean you have to say it all, but would you like to give for the Telework Council?
Sure, and Johan, feel free to jump in. We had a meeting in late January with the council, reviewed our work plan, and got feedback from the council that they were more interested in something related to hoteling sooner rather than later. So we went back to the drawing board and adjusted our timeline of events that we had planned. And April 13th, we will be hosting a hoteling showcase. So props to Johan for kind of spearheading and getting it going. But we've got either 8 or 9 secured vendors who are willing to show us their products, kind of best use cases in terms of potential employers or types of organizations where their products might make the most sense. And there may be an additional resource to come out of that too, as kind of like a quick guide if you're not able to make it to the event. So it's a resource for ACT members, and that's really what we've been focused on. But one thing I did want to highlight, we have a really good way of engaging our members in our meetings, I think, but outside of our meetings, it's hard to get responses or engagement. So posting questions in the ACT Connect, we get very little response. But when we have a meeting like this and people are on, the chat goes and we get a lot of feedback from other people. So I don't know if that's a sign to us that maybe we should try to host interactions more regularly, because that kind of lull in between our face-to-face meetings, it's hard to get engagement in the council.
Yeah, you hate to say, do we add more meetings to our calendar and our plate? Because in looking at, I've seen all the work plans, and you're all different, but how often you meet is also very different. In that your leadership group, if you will, the chair, the vice chair, perhaps you guys are meeting, and I don't mean necessarily specifically you, Allie, but in general, some of the councils are the officers, if we'll just call them that, are meeting more regularly, and then the membership is maybe only meeting quarterly, and so I could see the momentum there being a challenge, depending on what type of communication is going out in between. Does anybody have any thoughts or want to share? I mean, I know it's only March, but we can also go with the rest of the updates and see about that dialogue at the unless somebody has a comment on that. All right, we can come back to that, Ally. Then I could
Okay.
help you look at the council, the work plan too, to see. Olivia, I'm just again going in ranking order, but Vice Chair, I know Kevin's on the call too, but would you like to share the update for the TMA Council?
Absolutely. Thanks, Maureen. Appreciate seeing you all. Apologies, I'm not on video. I'm not feeling super great today, but thanks for having me, and I appreciate your, having me off video is okay with you all. For the TMA Council, like what Tom had mentioned, we had our first council meeting in early March. I'm blanking on the day, but I want to say March 9th, Tuesday, March 9th, and we had about 20 or so folks in the room with us today. And I would definitely echo what Ally had mentioned, where we have great participation in the moment and really active participation. And it's not as active in between those meetings too, as well. But I think what really came out of the TMA Council meeting was some great ideas for international conference sessions and how we can have some partnerships on some panels and upcoming topics for that. And Julia Ween, our council chair, has been really spearheading that and getting folks coordinated on that front, which has been really great to see that shape up with some interesting topics around shifting of programs for ACT TMAs and how we can have hybrid sessions, or what are the pros and cons of going all online with your events. And I know that there was another topic, but I'm blanking on it, so I'll lean on Kevin a little bit to help me out here. And likewise, I think what else came out of that was just our council members were really interested in collaborating and having a just more candid and I think networking opportunity for folks to be able to gather and brainstorm and share with each other. And so that was some actions and do outs that we had been working with directly with the employer council as well, like Tom had mentioned earlier on as well. And then I think just more broadly, major goals for the TMA Council throughout the year, aside from convening and gathering people together, is increasing the access to the TMA Council, whether that's with our online materials, static materials, and what is a one-pager of a TMA, what can a TMA be, and updating our reflective resources on the website. Or if that's doing direct outreach to those that may look like TMAs or sound that maybe aren't. Sorry, is it breaking?
Yeah, we
out?
Lost you a little bit.
Apologies.
No,
my
that's
Bluetooth
okay.
Headphones are a little wacky today, but I think just
The
prioritizing
developing-
outreach
Okay.
to those that aren't involved to the TMA Council, but maybe should be, or they haven't heard about us and they don't know how to get involved. And Kevin has been spearheading a lot of that as well. But Kevin, if I've missed things, please jump in and compliment what I've already said, or
I think that was
supplement it.
well done.
Thank you.
Well done for not feeling well, Olivia. I don't want to. I'm going to be turning it over to Aaron at university, but just hearing so far both Ally and Olivia saying the momentum perhaps is not there when offline, and just thinking about with TDM week, it's not until May, but thinking about how many successful stories there are out there during COVID because of TDM, because of the programs that the regions are investing in. Perhaps can that be a way, again, just thinking with Ally and Olivia bringing up, could that be a way that you're having some working groups in between your next meeting to start, gathering these, successful stories from your members? Food for thought. You don't necessarily, have to answer that question. So just wanted to throw that out there. I'll turn it over to you. There you are. You moved on my screen. Aaron, nice to see you.
Good to see everybody. Aaron Buckley, Colorado State University, Chair of University Council. My compatriot, JC, just dropped off. So you just got me today, but I think just a couple things I want to touch on would be that I don't know if there's ever been a crossover event between ACT and the League of American Bicyclists. Maybe there has been, but if not, we did one last Thursday. So we were just doing a celebration of the bike-friendly universities. along with the University Bike Programmers Network. We had 25, 30 people show up, and it was just a great way to kind of celebrate the new designations that schools have gotten for bicycle friendliness, or if they've reapplied, if they moved up, whatever it may have been. So that was good. Our next quarterly meeting is going to be April 9th. And I think our goal at that meeting is to nail down what we're going to do regarding presentations for the international conference. So I appreciate Elizabeth giving us a heads up that we don't have anything on the docket right now for the international conference for University Council, because I don't know of anybody that's actually gonna be allowed to go to it. So we are gonna hopefully find somebody that's going and is eager to present. And then Friday, we're gonna be meeting as a small group to begin to discuss bringing university research, so TDM research, into University Council a little more formally, and begin to broaden what we provide to people so that it's more interesting for people who are not just boots on the ground, but people who are looking at the theoretical side of TDM. And then finally, really just trying to continue and promote continuity with University Council programming.
That's interesting. I'll be excited to learn more about the TDM research aspect. That's really interesting. And that makes sense about the conference as well. You can't force people to attend. So I could see that as well, but thank you, Erin. And last but not least, Vanpool, Michelle, would you like to give that update?
Sure. I know it's 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
I
So
know.
I'm gonna short and sweet. We had a virtual discussion in January, really exciting. There was around 200 people. So that was really amazing. We actually have a meeting in our quarterly meeting in February, 60 or so people. Erica, hop in if I missed something. We just submitted our first session to Casey, so she can't yell at me. We're working on the second one, which is going to be the future of Vanpool. And Erin, I think we need to connect because we keep having people in Vanpool land talk about university stuff. So we connect. And then SEACT actually just did something. I don't know, Allie just hopped off, but we had all the council chairs do like a 5-minute update on our SEACT member call last week. We're trying to do this little like series, making the most of your membership and trying to invite different people in to talk about interesting opportunities and cross collaboration. So we did that last week and that was kind of fun. And we have some work group meetings going on and there we go, pretty busy.
Yeah, that's great.
2 minutes or less, done.
I know, yes, it is. It's great. And then I know, Elizabeth, you had, but we'll get the information out to the rest of the leadership, but if you would like to share the national update, I know that was mentioned briefly about the quarterly updates. You sent that calendar invite, but for those still on, thank you. And then I'll turn it over to Elizabeth.
I had a bunch of stuff to share with you guys, but I'll post it in Connect, and then that way you will all get it in your inboxes at some point. The most important thing I want to remind you about, though, is that quarterly reports will be due in April. I had initially set the April date as the 19th, which in retrospect is really late because I have to compile everything and get it off to the board ASAP. So please, if you can get them in to me before the 19th, that would be ideal. There is, as you know, and if you don't know, it's a reminder, there is an online form in the Council Leaders Resource section on the website. So that should be pretty easy just to fill it out and go from there.
All right. For those that are still on, any questions, anything you'd like to see for an upcoming meeting? I thought it would be great to have our membership chair, Roz, come in and talk about what are some of the goals of ACT in its strategic plan as it relates to membership goals. I know chapters are traditionally, if you will, more of those ambassadors to recruit new members, but thinking of the councils, it's such a niche of what you all do, and who better to talk to a university, to join, perhaps Erin, being able like, well, this is why we're a member. So, just thought that she can come on and kind of talk bigger picture goals, and then we can allow for more of this type of conversation. But anything else, you know, we could be doing, Act National, myself, that I could be doing to help you all. I know some calls I've been trying to get on for the meetings. Some have conflicted, but I'm looking forward to getting on those future calls for all of your meetings and here to help. So thank you for participating.
Hey, I'm hopping off too. All of us probably have a 3, but can you guys, when Jessica was talking about TDMCP, and maybe it's just me and I just didn't know, but people keep mentioning the recertification and like the credits. And maybe I'm an ignorant person, which I don't feel like I am normally, but if activities are counting toward that, that would be really good information to know so we can like forward it out. Thanks, Tom. I feel like I'm an idiot right now. I'm like,
No,
It's all in
I've-
the handbook, but
Well,
okay, come
I've
on.
actually been keeping a log myself personally, locally, so that I have it, so that I'm ready to go. But it would be great if there was some place to actually post that.
Or that there are requirements or reminders. As someone who is not cool with the TDMCP, like I didn't know all that. And so I can't, if I don't know about it, I can't support it and I can't push people in the council. Sorry.
I know that the CBOT is working on marketing and that kind of stuff. If you go back and look at the candidate's handbook, it's all in there. You might have noticed, maybe not. I know people, again, don't read emails horribly line by line, but we've started trying to put, you know, like webinars are eligible for recertification and trying to make sure that that is included in stuff like that so that people start to see it and start to think about it. Right now, we don't really have a spectacular way to capture everybody. So it is going to kind of be a one by one, you know, like Tom said, he's keeping track himself. But the CBOT is working on it. It's too bad we don't have Jessica on here still because she probably could have given us more details, but.
Well, maybe a 1 page or something, because I went to the Act Web, and I say this nicely, I'm not going in the handbook.
I know.
Because I'm not TDMCP, so I would have no clue. So for the rest of us who didn't go through it or haven't gone through it, if there's a 1 pager or really click or a link on the website of like, hey, do these 10 things, just a FYI, because why would I go in the handbook? I'm not CP.
Right.
Michelle, I'll send you an Excel spreadsheet that I created from the handbook, and I'll copy Elizabeth just in case.
Sure.
If you guys see that there's more folks that need this, maybe it'll be helpful.
That's awesome. Yeah, because Peter's on here now, but he was mentioning something in the council, like you can get certification points. And I'm like, oh, cool. Just trying to help.
No, that's good feedback. I hear you on shuffling through a handbook. So, all right. Well, thank you all for hanging on a little past 3. I was trying to keep it to an hour. So some of that conversation early on. So we'll just blame it on some of the Disney talk in the beginning, right? So, all right. Thank you all.
Thanks,
Thank you for your
Maureen.
leadership. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Very well.
Everybody.
Bye.